I love strategy games, and I have done so for as long as my old brain can remember. Some of my earliest gaming memories are from classic titles such as Populous, Colonization and Master of Orion. There is just something so satisfying about taking control of a squad, army, nation or civilization and directing it towards eventual victory. I think it's the mix of resource management, research choices and decision making that all come together to make a rich and fulfilling experience. Now, I'm a big fan of visuals, and unlike traditional strategy games, visual storytelling is a big part of video games. If Conan, not that Conan, but Conan, was to win a game of chess or Risk, he would have to be content with a handshake. But the last moments of a strategy video game will let Conan interactively crush his enemies and see them driven before him. This can be deeply satisfying, especially after a long and hard-fought game. Look at Conan, he's so happy, he's getting what's best in life. When I was growing up, gaming was in its infancy, but there was still such a rich variety of options. It felt like every year I was introduced not just to a new strategy game, but a whole new subgenre of strategy. Each game not just with its own setting, but a whole new set of mechanics and features. I still remember sitting with a group of friends, huddled around an early 486 PC, eagerly awaiting our turn to play Sid Meier's Colonization, sending our boats to port, exploring the new world, meeting the natives, and finally battling the ultimate enemy, the British. I'll always remember being perched on the edge of the chair in my dad's office, squinting at the tiny monitor as alien invaders wrecked my entire team on XCOM before I'd even had a turn, or the hours upon hours of managing mercenaries in the Jagged Alliance series. These games weren't just another 4X game or another tactical turn-based game to me, but instead the very first time that I had experienced anything like them. I'm sure they too had their predecessors, but these titles were the one that I first played and the ones that really left their mark on me. I loved all these types of strategy games, and I still do. In more recent years, I've sunk a lot of time into the revived XCOM series, as well as other great offerings such as Stellaris and RimWorld, which although isn't strictly a strategy game, is sometimes a strategy game. However, nothing quite excites me as much as real-time strategy, a genre that I have had a deep love and appreciation for, and a genre that has been going through something of a rough patch in recent years. I think that no one has perfected the formula for the modern RTS game, so it's just not a safe enough bet for studios to take risks on. That aside, I still love the genre, and every time a new title is announced I always feel myself wondering, is this it? Is this the revival? Is it time? Spoiler alert, no. I'll never forget the first time I was totally captivated, and the moment that locked me into a decades-long love affair with the genre. Let me set the scene. It was back in the year of our Lord 1995. This was the era of the Pentium processor, 2D graphics, and the absence of an internet connection. I was about 13 years old and had just got the latest issue of a popular gaming magazine. Let's call it PC Gamer for convenience. Back then this was the only way we really heard about new games, and it would come with a CD attached to the front cover, a CD full of demos of the latest games. This particular copy contained a demo of the game Command & Conquer, including 3 missions from each of the 2 campaigns and a little of the now famous motion video and groundbreaking music. I hurried around to my friend's house as he had a brand new multimedia PC, which was a fancy term meaning it had both a CD-ROM drive and a sound card with speakers. We loaded the CD into the drive and were treated to a pretty amazing install screen. No more dull white text on a black background, we were presented with colours, animation and voiceover. We were no longer just installing some software, we were connecting to a command network. And it only got better from there. We spent many afternoons controlling the tiny infantry units and tanks, enjoying ourselves as we attempted to complete one of the GDI missions. It was so difficult. The demo had no manual, no tutorial or instructions, and the feeling of satisfaction we had when we finally beat the mission was immense. I still remember that final push, using the unarmed but extremely tough truck to distract the Obelisk of Light while we killed it with our mammoth tanks. The next day we decided to try it again, to see if we could replicate our success or if it was just a one-time fluke. And then something unexpected happened. One of us accidentally double-clicked the unarmed truck, and right before our eyes, it turned into a building. That building could build more buildings. Those buildings could build vehicles that could gather money or create new units. We had spent ages driving around that stupid squat truck and had presumed it was just some sort of objectives vehicle that you had to protect. It's hard to explain how much this blew our minds, but I'll try. Imagine this. This is Terry. Terry keeps his merchandise in a storage unit outside his house that is elevated just above the ground on 4 circular rubber supports. Every day Terry leaves his house, waves to his loving and totally not AI generated wife, opens the door to the strange storage unit and removes all of the items he wants to sell at the market that day. He then walks 3 miles down the road to the nearest town with his wares, and at the end of the day, 3 miles back again. He does this every day for a year, until one day he's sitting on the chair at the front of his storage unit and decides for some reason to turn the key he sees and press his right foot down a little. Imagine Terry's mind right now. That's how we felt. Anyway, from that moment on I was addicted, and it was such a perfect time to be addicted. Over the next few years we'll be treated to so many amazing titles, each one bringing a whole new way to play our newfound favourite genre. Blizzard Entertainment brought us the unforgettable Warcraft 2, Starcraft and Warcraft 3. Westwood Studios brought us Red Alert, the greatest follow-up to CNC that any of us could have imagined. Age of Empires and Age of Mythology made us care about history, and Total Annihilation showed us what RTS could be on a massive scale. We had treat after treat, with Homeworld expanding things to an epic but beautiful galactic setting that I cannot do justice to in a single sentence. Other great games arrived between these mammoth titles, not reaching the same titanic heights, but still bringing something new and interesting to the table. Long forgotten today, but Empire Earth, Hostile Waters and Battlezone, I remember you. All of these amazing releases culminated in 2003 with Command & Conquer Generals, a fantastic game with such character and endless replayability. They followed up with Zero Hour later in the same year, and our workers finally had their new shoes. There was a resurgence a few years later, when we were treated to Starcraft 2, Dawn of War and Company of Heroes, but this was the last of the great games. Sure, there were plenty of releases after them, some of them good, but each title was either very similar or a bit worse than the one that came before it. And I think for me, the last really great RTS game that I enjoyed was Company of Heroes 2, which I first played over a decade ago. I'm not going to spend ages lamenting the downfall of the RTS genre, or debating exactly how dead it is or isn't. Plenty of others have already done this. But I will say that it's been a long time since someone has released an RTS game that has really captivated me, and I hope that someone does again, and it doesn't need to be a massive reinvention of the whole concept. If we look at the most popular games on Steam right now, we see that they are mostly old concepts that have been redefined, polished and remade into excellent games. Dota 2 is famously based on an old Warcraft 3 map, CSGO is based on a Half-Life mod, and Baldur's Gate 3 is based on, well, Baldur's Gate 2. Take a look at the list yourself. It's hard to find a title in the top 20 that you could honestly say is a brand new and innovative property. However, all of these games have tapped into what made their forebears great and further built upon them. We have had RTS releases in recent years, but none of them have managed to capture what made their predecessors so enjoyable and built upon it with modern technology for modern audiences. And when I say modern audiences, I don't mean modern audiences in the derogatory sense. I just mean that RTS fans of the 90s and the 2000s have changed now that we're in the 2020s. We play online, we follow streamers, we watch analysis, guides and tactics on YouTube. We still want our co-op mode, custom games and comp stomps, but we also want rankings and stats and competitive play too. I've played Dawn of War 3, Age of Empires 4, Company of Heroes 3, and Nordheim and Iron Harvest, as well as many others, but none of them gave me that drive to want to keep playing them for months on end. None of them made me want to jump onto Twitch or YouTube and watch others play or learn more about them. None of them made me want to play on the ladder or against my friends. None of them kept me up until the early hours, and none of them made me want to get straight on them first thing in the morning. Now where do we go from here? I still follow Brood War and Starcraft 2 a little, and the content creators I do watch have recently been talking about 2 or 3 new games on the horizon that might change this. It's still far too early to tell if these games will be good, but just the fact that there are still others passionate about both making and playing these games has given me hope. And you know what? It's made me really want to play some RTS again. But what do I play? I don't fancy dragging up my decades old back catalogue, which probably isn't supported anymore, and I don't have much interest in any of the more recent games, and I think that just leaves one contender, Starcraft 2. Now, I did play Starcraft 2 back when it was at the height of its popularity. All of the campaigns were very enjoyable, and although I never really learned how to play properly, I did find the 1v1 and 2v2 ladders very captivating. So I'm going to stop lamenting the genre and play some games of Starcraft 2. Some of you might be thinking, why do you want to play a 13-year-old game that's long past its best? Well, I'll tell you why. Because I love RTS. Are you an RTS fan? Leave me a comment and tell me about the moments that got you hooked. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, tell me about the other subjects you would like to hear me talk about. You can also like and subscribe, but you knew that already.